Hi guys, we're going to continue our discussion in diatonic triads, and I want to, alongside the idea of diatonic triads, I want to start introducing a very important concept or a related concept to that, which is chord progressions. So chord progressions are basically is a very important concept in music theory related to chords, which is how do we use different diatonic triads together to form what are called chord progressions or sequences of chords that are sequential, meaning like one after the other. So one of the most common chord progressions, specifically diatonic chord progressions, is the triad that's built on the first degree of the scale, which if you remember from the scale degrees names, it's called the tonic as well. So the first degree of the scale is tonic, followed by the fourth degree of the scale, triad built on the fourth degree of the scale, which is called the subdominant. And this is then followed by the triad that's built on the fifth degree of the scale, which is also called the dominant. And then finally, the triad that's built on the first degree of the scale, again, which is the tonic. So this idea of 1, 4, 5, 1 is a very simple but very, very important chord progression that's found in a lot of different music. The other thing that I want to point out is that this idea of the fifth degree of the scale, or the dominant, followed by the tonic, is also very important because it is said that the dominant resolves to the tonic. When we say resolves, means that we have this chord here, the dominant, that is immediately followed by the tonic. So that's what is talked about. That's what it's meant when we say that the dominant typically resolves to the tonic. This is an idea that is really important and is one of the most basic things in the idea of harmony. And harmony, like I've been talking about before, is how do we put chords together to create the structure of a piece or a song. And this idea of putting chords together is exactly what is meant by chord progression. How do we put different types of chords together to create a chord progression? So let's talk at the example here to kind of make sense of this. So we have two examples here, one in D major, and we have our key signature here, F sharp, C sharp. And then we have the same example in D minor. And we have our key signature for D minor, which is B1 flat, B flat. So we start with the first degree diatonic triad in D major, which is D major triad. And I have it here in closed form in root position. But I've also added low D, an octave lower on the bass treble, in the bass clef, on the lower staff, which is the staff typically used for the left hand of the piano. So this is just another D down here. And it's just an octave higher to an octave lower to this D right here. So we have D major, which we remember that the first triad of a diatonic triads in major is going to be a major triad. So that's why we have D uppercase. Then we have the fourth degree of the scale and a triad built on that, which is G, B, D, which is G major. So we have G uppercase down here. And then our next triad is built on the fifth scale degree, which is the dominant, and that's A, C sharp, remember C sharp from the key signature, and E. And we have our bass A down here. So that's A major. And then finally, this dominant resolves to the tonic again, which is D, F sharp, A. So let's listen to that real quick. All right, so that's our basic 1-4-5-1 chord progression, or tonic, subdominant, dominant, and then resolve into tonic. Let's listen to it in minor. But before, actually, I'll play it first and then I'll explain something that is a little bit different about this case. So let's play the same chord progression in minor. Okay, so did you, if you might have noticed something strange about this example that I wrote here. So if you remember from our diatonic triads in the minor key, natural minor, is that we have a tone here in this chord, in this dominant chord in D minor, that has a note that is not actually in the natural minor, in the D natural minor scale, and that is C sharp. C sharp, if you remember, is actually part of the D harmonic minor, which is that seventh raised seventh degree. C is the seventh degree of D. So that note does actually not belong to the natural minor key. So why did we put it in this chord, even though this is supposed to be the diatonic triad for A minor? Well, the thing is that often composers will actually substitute in when we're working with a minor key, composers will often write the dominant triad in major instead of minor, changing that seventh degree to the raised seventh to make it the leading tone. That way, when the dominant resolved to the tonic in minor, we still have that leading tone resolving by half step to the tonic. So you see that C sharp, C sharp, then resolves by half step to D. Now, if we had a regular diatonic triad here, this would have actually been C natural, and it would have sounded like this. So this actually happens in music, and it certainly happens a lot in pop music and non-classical styles. But in classical music, you will often see that in a minor key, the diatonic triad of the fifth degree of the scale, or the dominant, will actually be used as a major triad, so that we can have that third of that triad, or the seventh scale degree, which is C sharp in this case, be a raised seventh, so that it can become the leading tone of D, the tonic. So just watch out for this. Like in minor, there are often substitutions of that dominant chord to make it major for the leading tone. But as you can see, this basically works exactly the same way. We have D minor, and the first triad of D minor is a minor triad, and that's why I wrote D lowercase. The fourth degree triad of the subdominant in a minor key is a minor triad, and I wrote G lowercase for that. And then here we just talked about how I made the substitution of an fifth degree triad from minor, which it normally would be if we were following the strict diatonic triad of natural minor. This normally would have been A minor, but I've turned it to A major, and I wrote that in A uppercase. And then finally resolves down to D minor again, or the tonic again. So the scale degrees I wrote up here, and remember the scale degree notation is the number with the little caret on top. And these are just the chord names underneath. Uppercase for major and lowercase for minor. So this is just another example. In the next example, I'm actually going to be showing you guys how we properly notate chord progressions with what's called Roman numerals. So our next lesson is going to deal with Roman numerals and how do we label chords with that notation system. All right, see you guys later.